This ESPN podcast is brought to you by JackO. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit JackO.com.
The B.S. Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The B.S. Report. The B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the B.S. Report, a surprisingly beautiful Wednesday here in Southern California. Gotta love Southern California when it's like 75 degrees on January 9th, January 8th, whatever it is. We have a two-part podcast coming up today. I'm going to call JackO. We're going to do our annual podcast where we complain about whoever they pick for the Hall of Fame. In baseball, we will not be using a ton of advanced stats. We like to talk about this like two grumpy old men. We're going to do that. And then part two of the podcast, Zach Lowe and I haven't talked basketball in a while, and we have a lot of things to argue about and bring up and talk about, and we're going to do that. So two parts coming up right now. JackO, and he knows we are calling.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Johnny.
What's up, buddy?
Congratulations on Craig Biggio making the Hall of Fame. I know you were pining for it for years.
It's a proud day. Champagne bottles were popping at my house last night.
Do you remember that time we were at that game and Biggio? Oh wait, I don't even know what Craig Biggio looks like.
That time he got that base hit, it was great.
The time he singled up the middle.
Exactly, boy. I'll be bouncing my grandkids on my knee telling them that story.
My buddy Gus sent me an email. It's basically like, I can't wait to bounce my grandkids on my lap and tell them about never remembering a single game that Craig Biggio played. I thought that was apt.
That's exactly right. I can't think of one big moment that he was involved in.
I don't understand. We do this every year. I feel like we've taped this podcast every year, and it's
Probably
becoming an annual tradition. But I just don't understand the purpose of the Hall of Fame. It's supposed to be a museum. I've written about it a million times. We may as well cover it again. It's supposed to be this museum that captures all of baseball's history and memorable players. And I'm supposed to take my son there at some point and point to the different plaques. And Craig Biggio made it, but Curt Schilling didn't.
I know. And Pete Rose, who has more hits than anybody else, he's not in there.
And Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens don't get in and just have something on their plaque.
Exactly. They're not going to be in there. But Craig Biggio, boy, I'll have a tear in my eye as I stand there looking at his plaque someday. Yeah.
And John Smoltz made it, but Curt Schilling didn't.
Yeah.
There's about a 10-year stretch there. Does anyone take John Smoltz over Curt Schilling?
No, my God, no. I got in trouble yesterday from a bunch of Braves fans who tweeted back at me because I said, having watched them both pitch in their heyday, if I needed one guy to start a big game, I would take Mike Mussina over John Smoltz every day of the week.
Oh, interesting.
And I would. And Braves fans reacted viscerally to that tweet, and they were very happy. I guess, you're happy that your guy gets in the Hall of Fame. I guess that's a big deal to some people. And I'm not the biggest Mussina backer in the world, but if you look at his numbers, and really the better case I should have made last year, because he's much more of a Hall of Famer than Tom Glavine is. Smoltz was actually better than Glavine, so I have a better argument against Glavine. But for some reason, Mike Mussina, who's got like 2,800 strikeouts, he's got 270 wins, and I know we discount wins nowadays, but I guess we don't because Glavine got in because he got 300 wins last year.
Yeah.
And Mussina did it in the AL East in the heyday of the steroid era, pitching against the Yankees for the Orioles and then pitching against, the Red Sox as a Yankee. Manny and Ortiz and facing the Yankees lineup in the 90s and put up those numbers. And
I don't really understand.
In the NL East, you can't tell me that was his dominant. Now, he has a better postseason record, Smoltz, and he has 150 saves, and I guess people go crazy over that. But, I mean, to me, Mussina was every much the pitcher that Smoltz or Glavine was.
I would have ranked it Schilling one. Mussina and Smoltz, I think I could go either way on. Slight edge to Mussina just because I thought his career was slightly better, but I also didn't watch a lot of National League.
Right.
But they seem like it's weird to me that one of them would make it, but the other didn't. The Schilling thing, I feel like if he just gets hit by a bus after the 2007 season, he makes it automatically.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I despise him, but he, just based on his postseason performances alone, I mean, what he did for Arizona, what he did for the Red Sox, his numbers, he's a Hall of Famer. Nothing pains me more than saying that, but he is a Hall of Famer.
Well, and also it does feel like having moments should matter with this, like the bloody sock game was a moment. The fact that he pitched three of his sorry, Johnny.
Thanks.
But he 3 of his 4 postseason starts in 2004. He did on a bum ankle, and he won the last 2 on a bum ankle.
There's obviously 2 Hall of Fame voters that agree with you that moments should matter because they voted for Aaron Boone to be in the Hall of Fame.
Wow. So, I didn't support that.
For one at bat, he was a Hall of Famer to me, that's for sure. So I really kudos to those 2 guys for those votes.
Somebody was saying to me that maybe it was Jacoby was saying that, it was Jacoby passing on a Kevin Wilde's theory that the Red Sox winning the World Series should have counted for 3 rings because it was considered so inconceivable at the time.
So everybody from that team should be in the Hall of Fame? Is that your theory?
Well, not everybody. I mean, I don't think Trot Nixon should be in. But I was trying to look at Schilling's postseason that year. I mean, the bloody sock game alone, it would have been. Yeah, he beat Colorado too in Game 2. I went to that game. That was in 2007. I'm sorry. Yeah, he pitched Game 2 of the World Series. That's the game I went to. I just don't think people like Schilling. I think that's what this came down to. I don't think they like his last 8 years. I think they think he's annoying, and I think they think he says too much. I think they hold it against him that his company went bankrupt, and all of those things factored into him not making the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's always the interesting thing to the Hall of Fame for me is like Eddie Murray didn't get in for a long time, and the reason he didn't get in, even though he's one of the top 5 switch hitters of all time, he didn't get in because he was really prickly with the press. Wasn't nice to guys in the media room, and wouldn't give friendly interviews. So they like blackballed him for years.
I hate that.
Well, if you're just going to vote, I mean, if this is based on merit alone, and you're going to, they have this character clause that they all cling to for the steroid thing. And I guess that he was a bad character because he wouldn't talk to the media, talk about self-serving. So it's like you can put up whatever numbers you want to put up, but if you're not a good gregarious guy, then, that you're not going to get in the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous.
This is one of my all-time pet peeves when media people always play like the class card. Peter King did it on Monday. He had some sort of story and it ended with like class,
right.
Classy, or something like that. It's like nobody cares. Right. Nobody cares who's classy. What did they do in the field? Would you want to play with them? Right. I think like you go with Barry Bonds, somebody like that. Now there's somebody like forget about the fact that he was a dick to media members. Like he actually was a dick to people on his team.
Yeah, right.
Well, but he was like a bad teammate. He was somebody that nobody on his team is telling like fond Barry Bonds stories, and that should factor in a little bit. But in Schilling's case, I just thought he was awesome in 2004. I didn't follow the National League closely enough to tell you how great he was on those Philly Arizona teams, but like. That Arizona team ended the Yankee dynasty. That should count for something too.
I mean, he was huge in 2000. I mean, he was even huge earlier, and wasn't he huge in '93 for the Phillies when they went on that run to the World Series?
Oh yeah,
he put that team on his back to get him in the postseason because everybody thought the Braves were going to roll, and he pretty much single-handedly beat the Braves.
Yep.
On that Phillies team, him and Darren Dalton, and then he takes the Diamondbacks there with Randy Johnson as a deadly 1-2 punch. And then what he did with the Red Sox.
Postseason.
God, I can't believe I'm extolling.
I love it. Keep going.
Schilling. God, I may jump out of a window when this is over. Everybody gets all agog about Smoltz because he's got 150 saves. Well, Schilling, when the Red Sox didn't have a closer, didn't he become their closer for a year?
Yeah, he did. It wasn't for a year, but he did it for a few months. People forget about the 2007 Curt Schilling when he was a little bit washed up, but had some big moments in the started some big games in the 07 playoffs. It wasn't a deep starting rotation. They needed him. So
I don't know though. It's such a weird thing. And yesterday, like when I made a couple of jibes at Smoltz, and really it wasn't so much anti-Smoltz as it was pro Mussina, and all these people reacted, and I was thinking to myself, it's a great honor for these guys that actually get in, obviously, but really to the rest of us, it's just a museum, and you're deciding over like what exhibits are going to be in a museum. And I thought to myself, it would be funny, like I don't think they have this in any other museums, like the Smithsonian. Nobody's like, oh my God, I can't believe they voted Tyrannosaurus Rex as the #1 display. Where's Brontosaurus? Are you kidding me? God, those bones were magnificent. It's ridiculous.
Well, how is the Honeymooners being displayed like that?
Yeah, Archie Bunker's
Where's I
chair?
Love
Are you
Lucy?
kidding me?
Yeah, you're right. It is ridiculous. I think what's really annoying, though, is I have a couple problems with the Hall of Fame. I think it's interesting that everybody gets so upset about Tim Raines.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a huge Tim Raines fan. And when I had my big What If sports run, Tim Raines was like a what if god. Like, he was clearly way ahead of his time with on-base percentage and all the stuff he did on baseball field. The fact that he never got thrown out with steals, all this stuff.
He was the poor man's Ricky Henderson.
Right.
You can't fault him that he wasn't Ricky Henderson.
But you could make the case if he had just switched teams with Ricky Henderson his whole career.
Right.
Maybe we're talking about Tim Raines and Ricky Henderson was just this guy with great stats who said goofy things and wasn't quite as memorable. I don't know. The point is, we're judging Raines by the things we care about now.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, we didn't really care about them.
Right.
You know, like Wade Boggs would get on base and, you know, if you look at Wade Boggs now, his career that he had in the 80s, he's the perfect stat nerd guy.
Yep.
He's way over 400 on base every year and just does all the things you'd want from a baseball player now. But back then, we used to resent Wade Boggs. We used to be
as a Yankee fan who would always battle my Red Sox fans in the Mattingly-Boggs battles, it was always, Mattingly has a lot more power. Boggs is just a singles hitter. That was always the notion of what we argued about. And now, you look at Boggs with his walks and hits, he'd be a god nowadays.
People didn't understand how valuable he was. Like, he would get booed. Right. Somebody would be on second base in the bottom of the eighth, and Boggs would be up with one out, and he'd draw a walk, and people would be upset. They'd yell at him that he didn't try to get a hit. And you could argue that maybe Boggs trying to get a hit was a better chance for the Red Sox than Marty Barrett. But he did the right thing. Like, he worked the count, but we just didn't understand that at the time. And I think that's unfair to people like Steve Garvey and Andre Dawson, because at the time
they should be judged by their era. And
nobody was telling them. Yeah, nobody was telling them, hey, you should work the count more. Right. Or, hey, getting on base is really important. They were just telling them, like, look, you got to go up there, you got to hit the ball, you got to drive guys in, got to hit homers. You got to be clutch. Like, we didn't understand baseball.
Right.
So I don't understand how we're judging people like that. And then even you look at somebody like Lee Smith. Do you think Lee Smith's a Hall of Famer? He's probably not.
No, but he got 30% of the vote yesterday.
I know.
Lee Smith, he had the saves record for a while.
He was a great closer.
He was a great closer.
During an era when closers weren't used. I mean, they were used a little more liberally, It was like, hey, let's use this guy 6 days in a row. And now it's like closers are used so perfectly and so to their advantage. I think it's unfair to compare the closers now in some ways to the guys like Lee Smith.
Lee Smith did have a couple of years where he was lights out, though. It was like bring him in and game was over.
I loved Lee Smith. Do you think Edgar Martinez is a Hall of Famer?
I did, and then I was looking at the ballot yesterday, and I was looking at his numbers. His numbers don't really blow you away, but, I was nervous when the Yankees played the Mariners during those years, and Edgar Martinez came up. That's the thing. I kind of rate some of this on who put the fear of God into you. Like Smoltz, the Yankees faced Smoltz in the World Series, and I looked at his stats, and it turns out he pitched pretty well in '96 against them. He didn't pitch so well against them in '99, but I never had the fear of God like I did about Greg Maddux. I didn't fear John Smoltz. Oh, the Yankees don't have a chance. John Smoltz is on the mound. But when the Yankees face the Mariners and you have Griffey and Edgar Martinez, I'm like, oh my God, this is a rough inning coming up here.
I always felt like Edgar Martinez was going to get a hit against the Red Sox. I never wanted to see him come up, and I always felt like something bad was going to happen every time he was up.
And he gets penalized because he's essentially a DH, and I guess his numbers are not astronomical enough from a strictly DH point of view to put him in. I was surprised. He only has 300 home runs and he has 2,200 hits.
He was an early on-base god, though.
Yeah.
During the era when people started to go over 400 on base pretty routinely. What about Bagwell?
Yeah, Bagwell is an interesting case. I mean, he put up enormous numbers, and I'm from Connecticut, and he was the Connecticut boy. He went to the University of Hartford and grew up here, so they covered him, astronomically here in Connecticut. And he did put up massive numbers, and it was him and Biggio. I think he's a better hitter than Biggio. I'm more afraid of Jeff Bagwell than I am of Craig Biggio.
Bagwell, 408 career on base. 540 career slugging, 202 stolen bases, had the monster 94 MVP year. And I want to find the Astros fan during the Bagwell-Biggio era who's like, who's more valuable for us? Craig Biggio. Right. Thank God for him.
And he gets in because he has 3,000 hits, and he played like 40 years. So, I mean, the classic Mike and the Mad Dog Compila. He played forever and got enough hits to get to 3,000. But Bagwell was a much better player than Biggio was.
He's certainly
and of
more
course
memorable.
The Red Sox traded him for Larry Anderson, so that was always the 15-year lament of the Red Sox fan. He should get in just for that.
Yeah, I always followed the American League much more diligently than the National League for about 40 different reasons. But I always knew what Bagwell was up to, considering we gave him away for 2 months of Larry Anderson.
Right. Bagwell is one of these guys. He and Piazza, which is it's ridiculously unfair that they get painted with the steroid brush just based on rank speculation. Just like the taint of steroids in the air. They've never appeared on any list or failed any that anybody knows of, and have never failed any test that anybody knows of. And yet there's all these whispers. So they get caught up in the whispers, and they're, banished from the Hall of Fame now.
Which is weird because I just work under the assumption now that everyone cheated in that entire generation except for Greg Maddux and Pedro.
And Jeter, come on. Throw me a bone after all my shilling praise.
Yeah. I don't know what Jeter's up to. I don't trust that guy.
I mean, poor Piazza, he doesn't get in, and he's never appeared on a list like Clemens or Bonds or Big Papi. So it's an outrage.
Piazza, and I know you can only vote for 10, but Piazza not making it is legitimately insane. He might be the best offensive catcher of all time.
Well, next to Johnny Bench, you always have to put that. They always have to put that caveat in there. But he was certainly the best offensive catcher of our generation.
That's what I said.
Generation. Yeah, no.
I think he's the greatest offense. I'm going to put him over Johnny Bench.
Really?
His stats are better. He's played in a different era, but Johnny Bench had he was such a better defensive player. I think that was what.
I mean, when he got traded to the Mets, Piazza, when they pulled off that trade, that put them on the map, got him into the World Series. Maybe if he had charged the mound against Clemens in the 2000 World Series, everybody would have a different look at him,
See, I think that hurt. I think that hurt Piazza, that he handled that such a wimp.
Yeah. That was terrible.
If he'd come out with the bat and pulled a Juan Marichal on him, I think maybe he'd be in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of regrets.
Might get in unanimously.
I think, we're obviously okay with Randy Johnson, right?
Yeah. He was a terrible Yankee, but he was a dominant pitcher. Yeah, oh, yeah.
I thought he should have gotten 100% of the vote, and I thought Pedro should have. But I know people have their weird. It's like this passive aggressive.
Babe Ruth did in 1935 or whatever. Yeah.
It's so passive aggressive.
It's so ridiculous.
I'm not voting for him right away.
I wonder if there's like an email chain, like, I'm not going to vote for Randy Johnson. You make sure you don't vote for Pedro because we don't want to have to get 100%.
It's not an email chain. They talk about it in the nursing home. It's in the nursing home between canasta games. Chain. Yeah. I can't do it. Babe Ruth didn't get in 100%. I can't do it.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the process is for the NFL Hall of Fame. I think don't a bunch of guys just get together like Super Bowl weekend? Isn't it sort of a glorified veterans committee? But maybe baseball needs some panel of experts and take it out of the hands of these writers, and so it's not based on their gripes and their grudges and people that didn't talk to them and they couldn't get a story in time, and so they're not going to not let them into the Hall of Fame. I don't know how you would put it together, and there'd be griping about that too. But there should be some better way to have this make some degree of sense.
So you're saying that Dan Shaughnessy might have a couple biases?
1 or 2,000, yeah.
I mean, that guy has a vote.
It's ridiculous.
Jesus. I think a lot of these people should be in the Hall of Fame. And I've told you my nightclub idea, right? I think the Hall of Fame should be a nightclub.
Like your pyramid idea?
Well, the pyramid idea is a separate thing.
Oh.
I think you could talk me into a nightclub idea, too, where it's just like 160 people are in. And if somebody goes in, somebody gets thrown out of the nightclub.
Oh, wow. So it's limited for all time. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's limited all time. Maybe you had like 5 or 10 every decade.
Wow.
But it's you say, like, Randy Johnson's coming in. Uh-oh, Bill Mazeroski. He's thrown out of the nightclub.
Jeez, wow, that's crazy. Now that would be a bloodbath.
That would be great. It would just
that would lead to so many columns. It would be ridiculous.
It would lead to a lot of fights and anger. I still think the Hall of Fame pyramid that my buddy Gus's dad, Wally Ramsey, came up with in 1997. I've written about it many times. My basketball book was based around the pyramid concept. I think that would be unbelievable with the Baseball Hall of Fame. And like even this year, the pyramid concept was 5 levels. Lowest level was level 1, and it goes kind of up, and the last level is the Pantheon, level 5. Would have been really interesting with a couple of the guys that were in this year, right?
Yeah,
Where was Pedro? I think Pedro is a level 4.
I don't know. Arguably.
Have you ever seen a better pitcher?
Well, no, but this is where my own Shaughnessy bias comes into play, because there's no player I despised more. So I'm going to choke on my own tongue before I say anything nice about him.
Pedro went into Yankee Stadium on September 17th or September 13th, somewhere in September 1999, against the greatest baseball team of the last 35 years?
Yeah.
And threw one hitter with 17 strikeouts. Right in the middle of when you won 4 titles in 5 years and almost won a 5th title in 6 years.
I watched that entire game at a bar, and I've never seen them look more inept.
On a Friday night at Yankee Stadium, sold out, 17 strikeouts.
The home plate umpire was Jim Reynolds, with whom I went to high school.
Oh.
And was a big Red Sox fan. Sure, that's just a coincidence.
Stop it. Come on.
No, he was legitimately unhittable. I mean, literally, people throw the word unhittable around. The Yankees, they looked ridiculous. He made them look ridiculous. I've never seen a more dominant pitching performance.
So you would have Bonds and Clemens. Would you have McGwire?
Yeah, I think McGwire's a Hall of Famer because of the one home run season, and if you're going to put steroid guys in and the numbers all over. I never thought he was that great of a player. I thought so one dimensional, but. You can't argue. Well, you can't argue with those numbers because they're tainted. But if we're going to put all those guys in, you can't argue with the numbers that he has.
I will always remember watching McGwire in the late 90s when he was loaded up with God knows what at that 99 home run derby in Fenway, when they souped up the balls and McGwire was souped up and balls were going over the monster and going onto the Mass Pike, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that before in my life. And he also hit, what did he hit? 71 homers? 70? He was in the 70s. I don't even remember.
I don't remember because Bonds had 72. That's the record, but I forget. Yeah,
Bonds had 73. Yeah, McGwire had 72. Bonds had 73, I think.
Oh, did he? Because Sosa had 66 that year, and then McGwire had 70-something.
Poor
70,
Sosa.
71.
Sosa averaged 65 homers a year for the entire decade, and is being considered.
It's so crazy.
An off year for Sosa was 58 homers.
So crazy.
Meanwhile, he was growing a second chin, a third forehead.
Right.
What kind of steroids did those guys take back then?
It's so funny.
They disfigured Sosa's face. Whatever he was doing, his face got disfigured.
Yeah.
He was like, I must hit more homers. I enjoyed my favorite part of the Baseball Hall of Fame every year is when weird people get votes. You talked about Aaron Boone got 2 votes.
Yeah.
Troy Percival got 4, which I thought was hilarious.
Darren Erstad with 1.
Darren Erstad got 1. Tom Gordon got 1. 30 people voted for Nomar.
I know.
Nomar!
Unbelievable. It's every Boston beat writer, and then I wonder where the other 20 came from.
What is the case for Nomar? Even I can't. I love Nomar. Even I can't make that case.
I don't know. 30 guys made the case. 30. That's unbelievable to me.
Were they 30 drunk guys?
I saw that. I couldn't believe that. 30.
I gotta look up.
got 36, and Nomar got 30.
I got to look up Nomar's stats while we're talking here. So Nomar played
from have it right here.
1996 to 2009. God, he had those 2 great seasons, though. 99 and 2000. 357 and 372.
1,700 hits, 229 homers, 936 RBIs.
521 slugging career.
95 stolen bases.
Nomar, you should lose your vote. You should. I love Nomar, but you should lose your vote if you voted for Nomar.
361 OBP.
That's
521 slugging. That's solid. Yeah,
now,
Hall of Fame numbers right there for Nomar.
On the flip side, the hitman Don Mattingly with 50 votes.
Last year, he's done. 15th year, and he's out.
Well, I felt like he was the best hitter in the league in the mid-'80s.
He totally was.
I don't know what that means, but
his back just gave out on him. I mean, he's just not enough years. But, I mean, if you told me in 1986, 87 that Don Mattingly was not going to be a Hall of Famer, I would have fought you to the death. But, unfortunately, he's just not.
Were you surprised that Rich Aurelia and Jermaine Dye didn't get a vote?
I was actually making that joke to myself yesterday. I'm like, wow, no love for Rich Aurelia.
Come on, Rich Aurelia.
No votes.
Carlos Delgado.
He got
Fred McGriff. All these guys were under 75. 77 people voted for Jeff Kent.
Yeah. And he was another prickly guy. So, that's amazing he got that many votes.
How about Trammell's an interesting one?
Yeah.
Because Trammell's the one, you compare him to guys who are in, and he should be in, but I was there for the entire Alan Trammell era, and it's a hard case.
Yeah, again, we weren't really shaken when Alan Trammell came up to the plate. Good defensively.
My dad never took me to the Red Sox-Tigers game and said, we're going to go see Alan Trammell.
He and Sweet Lou Whitaker, they should go in, like they should share a plaque.
Don't you think that would be a great way to decide the Hall of Fame? Did your dad, or did you say to your son or your daughter or whoever, did anyone ever say the word in your family, we're going to the park to see blank?
Yes.
And if you didn't say that about that person, then I need an unbelievable case for him to make the Baseball Hall of Fame or any Hall of Fame.
I like that, and I like my fear of God. Like when this guy came to the plate or your team was facing him, like did he put the fear of God into you?
Yeah, but then at that point, then Paul O'Neill gets to be in, and I don't want him in any Baseball Hall of Fame. I was so scared of Paul O'Neill.
I love this new system I put in place just for that reason.
I was scared of Paul O'Neill. I was scared of that whole Yankee team. I miss having a baseball team that I think that's one of the reasons I don't follow baseball as intently anymore, other than the fact that every game is 4.5 hours. It was really fun to root against that Yankee team. Every Red Sox-Yankee game really mattered from 1998 through whatever, the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
I felt like all of those games really mattered to me. I really wanted to beat the Yankees. And now it's like I can't even work up enough hatred for Yankees. See, you're in a much better spot with the Red Sox because we still have all these guys that you hate.
I've engendered a lot of hate since 2004. That's right. If the rivalry was getting stale for me, and now it's engendered all kinds of hate. Unfortunately, the Yankees are awful, so that's problematic from my standpoint. But, the rivalry is still good for me. But you guys have been so dominant that it's just, laissez-faire for you. I know a few Mets fans. Yes.
There's some buzz about this 2015 Mets season. People comparing it to a little bit of a doppelganger to the 85 Mets-Yankees when that was threatening to flip.
There you go.
And
didn't last though, but yes, they did have a run there where they were the dominant team in town. Nice 4-year run as you were in the tank. Yeah, could happen again. Oh, totally could happen again if their pitching comes through. I mean, that's what built the '80s Mets dynasty, such as it was. Not really a dynasty, but their couple of years of glory there was they had a great pitching staff, and they're threatening to have a great pitching staff now. You might be done with baseball. I can feel it in your voice. Wow. Jeter's gone. I don't know if you followed my Twitter last night, but when I learned at 10:30 at night or whatever it was that the Yankees have re-signed Stephen Drew, I officially threw in the towel on the 2015 Yankees. I didn't see that. I did. I announced it at January 6th, 2015 at 10:34 p.m. It's over. It's over. Stephen Drew, it in. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. Wow. And it wasn't even a very good camel. It was like this camel that was limping along. It was missing its right hind leg. It was a camel that was about to be put down. That's right. Wow, you threw it in. Yeah, the Stephen Drew for one more go around. It's just such a ridiculous thumb in the eye of Yankee fans. I literally can't even talk about it.
Did they want to make sure that the guy who's replacing Jeter from Arizona wasn't the worst hitter on the team?
Apparently. I mean, our infield is Mr. Mom at first base.
Yeah.
Drew's going to play second, apparently.
Great.
They have this kid, Ref Snyder, in the minors who's threatening to be the next big thing. But just in case he's not ready, it's going to be old Stephen Drew, Didi at short, and Chase Headley at third.
Wow.
Chase, Didi, Steven, and Mark. That's our infield.
It reminds me of the Dodgers in the late 70s. Garvey Say. Very similar.
I know. Exactly. I mean, everybody says this kid Gregorius is great as a defensive player, but he can't hit to save his life. So now we're really going to have an awesome 8-9 with him and Steven. God,
nothing brings fans to the stadiums, right? Like good glove at short.
And the thing is, the Yankees need to shed some of these deadweight contracts. I'm not looking for them to go out and sign some guy to another $200 million contract that I'm going to be regretting 5 years down the road. But if you're going to stink, at least stink with young guys that maybe there's some hope for the future. And let's see what they can do. Don't stink with Stephen Drew, for the love of God, at $5 million. I mean, God almighty. I just don't understand it for the life of me. Do they really think they're going to compete with Stephen Drew as your everyday second baseman?
I mean, Mike, he's a 20 hitter. What are you doing, Brad?
Doug, I don't love it. I'm not going to lie to you. Got some questions.
I mean, Brian, I know you've had a rocky personal life, but don't take it out on the team.
It's just, I mean, he and Randy Levine running the Yankees, it's just and Hal Steinbrenner. I don't know. It's not exactly the glory years, put it that way.
It sounds like you're really ready to move on to a life of just coaching youth soccer teams.
That's true.
And watching cable dramas.
I'm all about soccer now. That's it. It's just Jeter may have left, and it may have been my farewell season too. Maybe they'll make a patch for that.
We'll have to start doing podcasts about things like when should you introduce goalies into under 9, under 8, or under 7 youth soccer?
Exactly.
And is 7-on-7 for under 10 soccer too few players?
Here's JackO to go over his 10 favorite drills for youth girls soccer.
That'll be next. That'll be in June when Stephen Drew said he won 40.
We're getting older now. You can just call me up and be like, "Boy, how about this weather, huh?" Boy.
That's true. We should start doing that.
Oh boy, this weather! My knee's acting up. It's crazy. It's cold.
Yeah, we might have to just shift to a political podcast that would turn off 90% of. Maybe that'll be our new Yankees versus Red Sox. So we'll figure out to take all these weird political sides.
There you go. That'll mix it up a little bit.
I'm a little more excited about the baseball season than you because,
understandably.
Well, I think Hanley Ramirez.
You've got your pink panda hat, and you're all set.
Oh, I love the panda.
Okay, somebody tweeted me a picture today of Hanley Ramirez. Looks like he was shopping for Christmas presents, or he's in a toy aisle of a store, and he's wearing a sleeveless shirt, and he's got the guns are loaded. Looks like he's been doing a little off-season work of one kind or another.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think he's met with Dr. Ortiz down in the.
Come on.
Unbelievable. He looked enormous. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Here's the 50 home run Hanley Ramirez season.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, it was a troubling picture. That and Stephen Drew, that's just finished me.
I hope there's not some biogenesis scandal about to break that has
please.
My entire starting lineup in it.
And, if that happened, I'd have to do the Al Pacino. Just when I thought it was out, they pulled it back in.
You'd be reading Boston.com 10 hours a day, just reading the comments of people freaking out.
Absolutely.
That's what you have for this year, Johnny. You got hate reading about the Red Sox.
That's true. It only works if they stink, though. If everything implodes, if this becomes the worst team that money could buy, I'll be so happy. But that's all I have, really, is just Schadenfreude. That's all I have to root for. There's no place good to be. When
we're trying out Rick Porcello on opening day, I think.
Yeah.
I think the American League is going to be running in fear.
Absolutely. Speaking of the fear of God, yeah.
I think this is our worst opening day starter, whoever it is, since Aaron Seeley in '97.
Aren't you going to pull the trigger on a Cole Hamels deal at some point, though? You're just going to talk them down.
God, I hope so.
I mean, they're holding out for Mookie Betts or Hall of Famer Xander Bogaerts or something.
They trade Mookie Betts. I'm gonna really be upset. He's the number one reason.
Opening day, the Phillies are going to be sitting there going, we can't pay him this whatever's left on this $100-something million contract. They're going to give him away for a bag of balls.
I will say, in all seriousness, I don't mind that they're playing it this way. The Cleveland Cavaliers are our most recent example, but you don't want to build your team 2 months or 4 months before the season starts.
Yeah.
Your team doesn't have to be done on opening day or the first game of the season. I think that's the most common mistake teams make. This is fine. As long as they go into the season with a plan of, all right, we'll start it this way, and then we think we can get a starter in June.
Right.
Who can lead, then that makes sense to me. I'm a little more worried about the closer situation, actually, than the starting rotation. But
what about Uhara or whatever? You think he's done?
Sucked.
His second half, you think, was more reminiscent of what he's going to become?
Yeah, he's my age.
Yeah.
Well, he's not my age, but he might be my age.
He might be.
You never know. Never know with these baseball players who weren't born here.
True.
Johnny, it's always a pleasure.
A joy.
I'm glad we hashed out our Hall of Fame feelings for the annual year.
Absolutely.
I like the fear of God test. I like did my dad take me to the ballpark to see this guy play, or did I take my girlfriend or my daughter or my son to the ballpark to see this guy play? I think those are two good variables.
Maybe you could incorporate all of them together so each counts for something. Like he got 3 bouncing your grandkids on your knee votes, 1 fear of God, and 2 tell your son or girlfriend. He's a Hall of Famer.
My buddy Gus, diehard Mets fan, swears that Tim Raines passed the fear of God test and the take your dad take you to the ballpark to see Tim Raines play test.
See, there you go.
He also passed the had to slide head first into second base because he didn't want to break the cocaine vials in the back of his pocket test. Wasn't that him?
Yeah, I think so. That's a gamer right there. I mean, that shows you a dedication to the game and to his drug habit. That's good.
I do feel like, I'm just making sure that was him. I'm Googling Tim Raines head first.
Because he had the cocaine vial in his back pocket.
Yeah, that was him. See, I don't blame anyone from 1976 to 1986 for cocaine use because nobody really knew it was that bad for you until people just started dropping dead. And then the red flag went off. But there was this whole era where athletes, celebrities, you name it, they're all like, hey, cocaine, you want some? Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, what could go wrong?
And if you're going to penalize guys for using performance-enhancing drugs, shouldn't guys get a benefit for using performance-dehancing drugs? Like
Great
if you're
point.
using drugs that actively hurt you and playing the next day because you have a cocaine hangover, you're tired, you're sick, and you're still putting up these numbers, shouldn't that count for something?
The de-enhancement era.
Yeah, exactly. You should get some points. You should get some points for that too. We're going to work that into our new system too.
All right, Johnny. We'll check in with you soon.
All right.
Love to the fam. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, that's it for part 1 of the BS Report. Check out part 2. We're going to call Zach Lowe and talk about anything and everything NBA. Stay tuned for that on the BS Report.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Hey, what you got there, Goldick?
The new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole.
Man, that looks good.
Yeah, this new guac is really bringing the flavor.
Got one for me too, right?
Well, yes and no. Mostly no. Well, really, all no.
Try the irresistible new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole, juicy grilled chicken strips with Monterey cheddar, Chipotle Southwest sauce, and new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of jalapeno. Subway, eat fresh.